I witnessed, recorded, and produced these videotapes of the Washington, D.C. hearing. Their authenticity is above question. This is a hearing about the government licensing the electrocution of people to cause grand mal seizures.
This is produced as part of the ongoing work on the website, thewaythetruthandthelife.net.
Think of the millions of dollars, taxpayers' money, spent to pay psychiatrists and their supporters and for the worldwide travel in putting this conference together, while the victims and opponents had to pay their own way.
Yes. Bert.
That's Dr. Thompson, a question about the types of affective disorders being treated with ECT and the clinical state, whether there's any information about what the percentage of people get mania, whether it's depression or delusion or not.
You're asking what the breakdown is in affective disorders, what actual conditions. That is there. I'm afraid I did not look at it. It was just, I can at some point, but the way the data is put together is it's collapsed into those groups, and it's very difficult to go back and get the original analysis.
Mr. Burt. Mr. Chairman, I have two separate questions that I would like to pose to two different speakers. The first is Dr. Kerman. Dr. Kerman, at the end of your abstract, you make the statement, let me just read it. Society, you say, has yet to make a full course benefit analysis of ECT, balancing the advantages of treatment success against the adverse effects on memory and psychological function. The question I'd like to pose to you is whether this is equally true for other modes of psychiatric treatment, taking psychoactive drugs in particular. Can one say that the research with regard to the risk-benefit calculus is of higher quality than for ECT? Or is there less uncertainty about psychoactive drugs regarding the risk-benefit calculus for one than the other? And if it is not the case, that is to say, if there is an equal uncertainty about both of these modes of treatment, are there nonetheless, in your judgment, special reasons to be more cautious about ECT than psychoactive drugs? That is to say, should ECT be required to satisfy a higher burden of proof?
Well, those are very relevant questions. Comparable questions about the balance of costs of safety and efficacy have been raised about the neuroleptic drugs around the issue of tardive dyskinesia. And one could have a relevant and timely discussion as to whether or not the downside of the use of neuroleptic drugs, particularly with tardive dyskinesia, had a balance that against the demonstrated efficacy against acute psychoses, and the issues that Dr. Rothman raised about the nature of informed consent and supervision could equally be applied to tardive dyskinesia. And I would probably recommend to the people developing such consensus conferences that perhaps it is timely to apply this mechanism to that delicate problem. So it is not exclusively a matter of ECT. Now, whether, in my opinion, ECT merits special consideration, here I would invoke a distinction that I think was implicit in Dr. Rothman's comment, and that is, I think the issues about regulation, informed consent, and the protection of subjects hinge crucially on the issue of the evidence for safety and efficacy. And I think that the logical way to proceed would be to attempt to reach some consensus on that. If he is correct in his assumption, and I agree with his assumptions, that the evidence is pretty good for efficacy, there's still some uncertainty about the relative safety issues, then the problems include how to assure that the gap between scientific knowledge and actual clinical practice is closed. If, however, there still is uncertainty in the minds of the panel about the issue of safety and efficacy, then that requires very high priority because the development of effective prior demonstration of safety and efficacy. If there's no efficacy data, then the whole thing should be thrown out the window. I don't believe that, but I think that the whole sequence of the discourse hinges on the issue of safety and efficacy. But those issues are not unique to ECT. They are equally applied to neuroleptic drugs.
Dr. Weisman?
The question is to Dr. Thompson. The diagnostic criteria changed in the United States between 1975 and 1980, and I'm wondering how you can explain the data that you presented in light of these changes and whether you think the data are accurate.
The criteria actually changed largely in 1980, DSM-3. We have a mixture in our data set of DSM-3 and DSM-2 in 1980. It's largely DSM-2 because most people hadn't switched. The data were then collapsed into overall categories. There may be some variation, although most of the categories we're interested in here didn't change all that much. They were fairly easily crosswalked from DSM-3, DSM-2 to DSM-3. One difference I did note was possibly schizoaffective. It seemed to be a less use of the schizoaffective diagnosis, and I think we can probably push that to DSM-3, which is service procedure.
Dr. McNair?
I had a question for Dr. Carter. In terms of the method of your surveys, do all institutions that are randomly sampled for inclusion, do they respond cooperatively? Do all the institutions that are randomly selected for the NIH surveys, do they all respond and cooperate with the survey?
What's the response rate? It's a voluntary survey, but we traditionally have very good response rate. It's on the order of 90-95%. They're quite cooperative. We also have a group of people that sit around and spend a lot of time on the telephone calling back and getting incomplete data filled in. So I feel pretty good about that. Mr. Bird.
I have another question I'd like to pose to Dr. Roth. You spoke of the troubling history of the use of ECT for institutional management rather than patient-centered purposes. The question I'd like you to address is whether you think there are special contemporary reasons for clear continuation or intensification of that. And specifically, what I'd like you to turn your mind to is this issue. There may be new pressures coming on hospitals to remove psychiatric patients quickly because of the impact of the DRG system. The data suggests that whatever its long-term risks and benefits, ECT works for rapid ameliorative effect. In your judgment, is that a special contemporary reason to be concerned about an expanded use of ECT for institutional management or convenience purposes rather than patient-centered purposes?
Please come up.
At the FDA hearings, the testimony on the reclassification of electroconvulsive devices cited the literature as whether it's signed or false, typically about 150 joules of energy in a treatment. With the new Thymatron electroconvulsive device, if you check out at 400 volts maximum of 0.9 amps and 320 some millisecond pulses.
Could you finish up your question, your remarks?
Yeah, I would like somebody to tell me. I'm a teacher as well as a physicist, and I brought a kilogram with me. Teachers like to demonstrate. Now, this is a kilogram. It's 2.2 pounds. Heavier than a hammer I used to hit a hammer. I wonder if possibly like Dr. Stein could tell me how high I would have to drop this kilogram from in order to have it hit the ground with 150 joules of energy.
I don't know if that question is in the purview of the panel, but that can be one. I'd like to go on to the next person.
This is only 10 joules of energy. You're talking about dropping it from higher than a 5-story building. That's physics. Supposedly in pre-med backgrounds.
Thank you.
I never got
All right, out with your gun. Out with your gun.
Okay, this won't hurt. It'll be over in just a moment.
What's that?
Conductant.
Oh, dabble, do you? Right, Mr. Jackson?
Open your mouth.
What's that?
This will keep you from biting your tongue.
Well,
Now just bite down on it.
oh,
That's right. Just bite down. Now bite down on it.
good.